Hello and welcome on in episode number 45 of the Wise Guys podcast. I am John Tortorelli with my co-host Brennan Capizzello and Justin Wright. Today we have much to discuss in the NFL world. The last time we recorded was before the NFL trade deadline, where we saw a lot of moves happen. Starting off today, fellas, do we begin with the move in Jacksonville or the move in Minnesota?
Let's talk about the one in Jacksonville, get it over with, because this guy won't be on the field.
So the Jaguars are a team that we talked about ad nauseum, needing a wide receiver number one, a go-getter on the boundary. And what did they do? On November 1st, I guess that was Tuesday, they go in and get the Falcons' Calvin Ridley, who was suspended for all of the season for betting on a game against the Jaguars last year. And in return, the Falcons are giving up a draft pick that initially is a fifth rounder in 2023. But if Calvin Ridley passes his physical, he extends with the team, it can become a 2023 second round pick. BCAP, you're a big Trevor Lawrence guy, and so are you, Justin. You know what, Jerry, I'm going to head off of you first. You're the big Jaguars guy here. What do you grade this Calvin Ridley trade? And even though Calvin's not going to play this year for the Jags, how big of an impact does this make for Trev?
Letter grade, I guess I'd say a B, for the simple fact that, one, he's not on the field, so he's not going to make that instant impact. On the other side, Atlanta may potentially get a second round pick, which is great for them. But we talked about TLaw, and I remember in the beginning of the season saying how I wanted Odell going to Jacksonville, because why not? This guy he'd be the number one instantly, get force fed those targets. And, I guess brainwash everybody that he's really still a number one wide receiver. But now you get Calvin Ridley, who before the suspension, he was Atlanta's number one receiver. He was putting up big numbers. He was an absolute stud. I'm kind of mad that he's not in New England right now, but for TLaw, this is a great pickup because they already have a young core at the receiver spot. I love Christian Kirk. I like Zay Jones, and I mean, while Marvin Jones Jr. he's older now. If he's still in the fold by next year, you couple that with Calvin Ridley, that's a dangerous offense right there. So I think this is exactly what you want to see from a franchise, especially Jacksonville, investing in their quarterback. You want this from every team. And remember, it seems to me that every third year for one of these quarterbacks, you're getting them a number one wide receiver. And now that remains to be true. So going into his third year, he'll have Calvin Ridley and maybe even more. I like it.
I'm going to go with the A. And I'm going to go with the A because before did he get injured that year that he played 5 games, or was that the suspension? I can't remember. But so he's going to take a year off. He's going to be much healthier, not a whole year of wear and tear on his body. And before that, 143 targets, 90 receptions, 1,374 yards and 9 TDs. And he only played 15 games, so he would have had another game on top of that. I love it for Trevor Lawrence. He's finally got his true number one wide receiver, which he has been sorely lacking for his first 2 years as a quarterback in the NFL. I love this move so much. I echo Justin's sentiments. I tweeted about it that, damn, maximum it could be worth a second round pick, and New England could have had him. But you know what? I'm looking forward with New England, so I'm on to next year, so it doesn't really matter. But for Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars, love it. I think next year they're going to be even better. I know they've lost 4 or 5 straight now, and people can hype that up all they want. All the Jaguars are collapsing, whatever. Trevor Lawrence isn't going to be the guy, whatever. Blah blah blah. Listen, I'm not going to put too much stock into the season. Like, yes, I did say they could make it to the playoffs, so they'd be the second best team in this division, which it looks like they're going to be the second best team in this division. So this season, fine. Next year, I'm locked and loaded. I think the Jaguars are going to be arguing with the Titans, maybe the Colts if they get that quarterback situation figured out, and the offensive line. Jaguars are going to be right there vying for that number one place in the AFC South next year.
I got a question for the two of you guys. I'm sorry about that, John. Is Trevor Lawrence the best quarterback in the AFC South?
I'd take him over Ryan Tannehill.
Outside of the red zone, he is.
Okay, I was just thinking about it while Brandon was talking. It was just like, he just might be. I don't know. I go with Tannehill. I take him over. I take Lawrence over Tannehill.
They're all in the same tier between those two. Not Davis Mills, it's those two because Matt Ryan's benched. The other move with this, they're a part of this trade is he's only going to make $11 million next year. For a low end wide receiver number one, you're typically in Jacksonville going to have to overpay for these receivers. We saw that with Christian Kirk. But given what the market is, Calvin Ridley was a first round pedigree, and he lived up to that, averaging, 91 yards per game in his third season. What that leads us to is the sponsor of this show, InvestAmp. If you're in sports betting, the most important thing is knowing the exact market. And there's no better way to do that than having multiple different sports books because each sports book has different odds, some better than others. With the BetStamp app, all you have to do is download it, which is completely free in the App Store. And for each and every single sports book that you sign up with on your BetStamp account, you'll be able to see the best available odds on whatever platform it may be across all different sports. And the best part about it is it is entirely free. They also feature custom betting trackers and bet analysis tools so that you can do all of your accounting and betting in one single stop. And hey, if you want to make more money betting, there's no better way to do it. Make sure you bet like a pro with the BetStamp app and use our referral code at WiseGuys. That's WISEGUYS. Anything else before we go on to the move in Minnesota?
We're on to Minnesota.
So we typically don't see interdivision trades. The last one I can't remember quite off the top of my head, but they're few and far between. The Vikings moved another player first round pedigree, a former top 10 overall pick at the tight end position from Iowa. Those guys have a very well-known background. We look at the NFL, and TJ Hockenson for a 2023 second round pick and a 2024 third. While the Vikings are also getting a 2023 fourth and a conditional pick in 2024. And TJ Hockenson, who coming into the season, most of us had as a top 10 tight end in the league. BCAP, you're not a big believer in the Vikings and their hot start, 6-1 to the season. How much of an impact will TJ Hockenson have on this offense?
I'm not a big believer in Kirk Cousins. I think the Vikings team as a whole is very good, very talented. TJ Hockenson is a big addition, much better than Irv Smith has panned out to be. Yeah, I like the move. He's only played one full season, so he's got to stay healthy for them to really get the true value for him. But adding him with Justin Jefferson, that's just another guy the defense is going to have to keep their eye on. I love this move. Love it. Talk to me, Ray.
I don't know if I necessarily love the move. For the simple fact that, TJ Hockenson, while a great talent that he is, it seemed to me that he disappeared pretty often in the Lions offense. There'd be stretches in time where he'd look like that dominant tight end, and then others where you don't hear from him. You don't see him at all. And this is a team in Minnesota that I feel like doesn't really utilize their tight ends as often as they should. Even when Irv Smith was healthy, they're not utilized as often. So I'd like to say, yeah, he can make a huge impact to this offense because you still have Thielen and you have JJ. So I guess I'm not in love with the trade. I don't really like in division trades. Like we said, Hockenson can be a special talent. And if you got to go up against him 2 times a year and he's shredding you, you're going to look foolish, especially when the Lions offense is pretty good. You have Goff, while he may not be the answer at quarterback, you have St. Brown, and I can't wait to see Jameson Williams healthy and on the field. So, and plus DeAndre Swift, Jamal Williams didn't get traded. You still have a very good offense, and you're taking something that can be very valuable away from it. I feel like the potential of the Lions offense would have been that much better when Williams is healthy and Hockenson there at tight end. So now you lose that. I really don't like the move for Detroit.
For Detroit, I'll be honest with you, J. Ray. I thought this was a perfectly reasonable move. Hockenson is taken by a new regime. And honestly, in this stage of his career, he's a good tight end, but he's not a top 5 guy. I think a lot of people have expected him to just break out because of the draft pedigree. But Hockenson doesn't have one elite skill like a George Kittle or Darren Waller. He's not a constant mismatch. And we saw a ridiculous game with 170-plus yards against the Seahawks. But like you said, it's not the typical reliable tight end that you're going to really incorporate as a 1 or 2 first or second read in your offense. Hockenson, though, is still a really good player. I think for Minnesota offense that did not get much consistency or just adequate play from Irv Smith, it's a massive upgrade for a team that I think can make a push in the playoffs and maybe make it to the Super Bowl if everything clicks because of how wide open this NFC is. You go, what? Yeah, they can, because this defense this year has been top 10, and the offense, so long as Kirk Cousins on prime time, is just,
That's the reason why I do that.
I talk myself into Minnesota with all of these moves because it's one of the most dynamic units in the league. And with Jettas, you have probably a top 3 weapon in the game. I think Hockenson's really going to benefit off of being, the second or third read in an offense where, dude, in the red zone, you have another guy you can go to. I thought for Detroit getting, 2-day 2 picks, it was a pretty good move, or a 4th-round pick. I didn't think it was a bad one at all. And for the Vikings, I felt like this was a weird move. He didn't need to make it, but it was a certain upgrade for a player that is only in his 3rd season.
So how much better to the both of you guys does this make the Vikings' chances? I mean, you said potentially the Super Bowl. So Brandon, does this change your outlook on what they can do in the playoffs?
No.
Not
It's
at all.
not about Hockenson. It's about Kirk, whatever the hell. About him.
Reliable tight end helps. And Hawkinson's in his 4th season, not his 3rd.
It
Apologies.
helps, but when you're missing the player or you're throwing to the other team, that doesn't – nothing Hockenson can do about that. So.
Maybe the Vikings, do they ever get back to the NFC Championship game post Case Keenum with Kirk? Ever?
I mean, anything is possible. They can get a great matchup, but again, I don't know. They could.
What
Yeah,
would it
it's
take?
really about matchups. I have to see them go up against a team like maybe that's maybe the Giants if they run into the Giants, or maybe even I don't even know if I want to throw in the Bucks there, because the Bucks seem all vulnerable too.
I don't think they'd be a good matchup for Philly, but let's say Philly gets knocked out by the Cowboys, right? In the second round. All of a sudden, Cowboys-Vikings NFC Championship game. I think that's a total toss-up in my eyes. You beat the Giants if you're the Minnesota Vikings this year, you get the Giants in the first round, right? You're the number 2 seed. So the Vikings this year, let's say they finish the number 2 seed, and they get the 6th-seeded Giants in the first round. They beat Daniel Jones, and then they move on to the second round, where the Dallas Cowboys, number 5 seed, somehow upset the Eagles in the second round of the playoffs, the divisional round. Now you've got Dak Prescott versus Kirk Cousins in the NFC Championship game. All of a sudden, 2 quarterbacks, they're not top 10 and are, very productive, but kind of flawed. One of those 2 is going to the Super Bowl. If that were the case, who is going?
The Cowboys. I like the Cowboys more than I like the Vikings still. I feel like they're more dynamic, especially on defense. I mean, I feel like the Minnesota defense, while they're playing way above the expectation, I don't see that as something sustainable. And I don't know who it was, a Vikings player. It might have been Justin Jefferson that said they're sleeping on this, or maybe it's not a fluke, the 6-1 start. To most NFL fans, yes, it is. You guys I feel like they're a regular season team. I really just can't see them making that push in the postseason. I feel like Kirk Cousins has showed us time and time again exactly what he is, and he is a regular season quarterback. He can put up the numbers that may look fantastic on paper. You could see these numbers. If I showed you Kirk Cousins' numbers with the Vikings, you would be like, and you never saw him play, you'd say, yo, this is an all-pro quarterback. He's no joke. He's the real deal. And then when you watch him play and you see some of the decisions he makes, that will instantly bring you back. And I think that's where me and Brandon are as far as where we see Kirk Cousins. It's just, we've seen him play time and time again. And I think we just have come to get used to what we've seen. So I can't see anything different. I'm rooting for him, though. He's not a bad dude, man. I would love to see him win, but I just don't see it happening.
About getting a new head coach like Kevin O'Connell, I think the Vikings can write a new narrative this year. Now, the next move of the day, or the same day, was from the day before, was Roquan Smith to the Baltimore Ravens. Roquan requested a trade going into the season. He wanted a contract extension. The Bears, with over $100 million in cap space, very reasonably did not want to extend a linebacker whose timeline does not fit with their own. And the Ravens, meanwhile, needed a massive upgrade. Given Patrick Queen is not exactly the solution after taking him in the first round back in 2019, I believe. And the Bears will be receiving a second round pick from the Ravens and a fifth rounder. For you two guys, both low on this Ravens defense, how much of an impact will Roquan Smith make knowing that he's playing on a contract year?
I think this is incredible for the Ravens. I think this is a team that, well, I've been high on throughout from the beginning of the season, and I feel like this is a team that can make a Super Bowl run. I think when you look at this Roquan Smith, this is an insane amount of trust and belief that the Ravens have in this guy, because the linebackers that have walked through Baltimore, those legends, and now he's playing in those people's shoes. He's stepping in there. There's some insane expectations, and I believe he can live up to it. I love this move for Baltimore. I think they just get that much better. And that now I feel like they're just gonna run away with first place right now.
I mean, it's a pretty good move. I mean, I like the move. I'm not going to hate on the move, but as far as it changing like their entire life, I don't think it's that great of a move. So, I mean, his biggest skill set is really his ability to stop the run and be a great tackler. And the Ravens are struggling with passing down situations, stopping the pass. So he is a solid pass coverage linebacker, but he's not going to knock your socks off, and he's not going to be able to go toe to toe with the best tight ends. Or if you stick him on a wide receiver, I would say good luck with that. But I like the move a lot. I don't want to hate on the move. I think it's a really great move. I agree with Justin's sentiments about he's got a lot to live up to because with the linebacking history in Baltimore. So, yeah.
It's not even as much about Roquan Smith as it is the linebacker position. Those guys can't get phased out when you're just throwing the ball out. But for the Ravens, it's not just Roquan Smith coming back. Tyus Bowser and their second-round draft pick. He was supposed to be a first-round pick until he tore his Achilles at the Combine, and David Ojabo have both been activated, and their returns are right around the corner. So for a Baltimore defense that's getting back, probably it's what's going to be its soon best edge rushers. You add in Roquan Smith, and with Marcus Williams, he's out. Okay, but Marcus Peters, Marlon Humphrey, they're going to have more and more time off of those knee injuries. And you say to yourself, if this Baltimore defense is playing at a high level in December and Baltimore is getting stops, it takes so much pressure off an offense that this year has had too much expectation. There's been too much pressure on them to win them games. And I feel for them this really does balance out both of those two units. Ultimately, I never feel great about paying a linebacker. And for as good as Roquan Smith is, an elite player, probably top 5, top 7, at the end of the day, I think the Ravens do have bigger issues on their defense, and that most notably is getting to the quarterback. So the next move was the Chicago Bears. They're very busy trading a second-round pick, not the Ravens, there was some confusion, their own second-round pick, to the Pittsburgh Steelers to get Chi-Claypool. Justin Fields has been playing very well in the last couple of weeks, and this Chicago offense needs a vertical dimension. And for Chase, a player that has always shown the flashes, but it's a matter of opportunity and inconsistency in Pittsburgh. He gets to go back to the Midwest, where he played college football at Notre Dame, and all of a sudden, you see what is probably the biggest win-win-win move of the deadline. B-Cap, I'm going to head to you. For Chicago, they needed a receiver. They took N'Keal Harry. That wasn't enough. You now have Darnell Mooney and Chase playing together, taking a lot of pressure off of Mooney. How big of an impact does this make for this young second-year quarterback?
Not major or anything. I mean, Chase Claypool is a good wide receiver, but not a number one. He's a good number 2, I would say. So good red zone target, good big body target, good 50-50 ball guy, but
Struggles to stay on his feet sometimes. As a Steeler fan, I can tell you.
not that.
Let me add.
Not changing life.
What if Chase is only making $600,000 and this year and only $1.5 million next year? Because that's exactly how much he's making. Pretty good value.
Yeah, but again, you asked me how much does this change life for Justin Fields, and I just still don't think so. I mean, yeah, good value, good receiver, but knock your socks off? No, not a Calvin Ridley move.
What makes me laugh about this is this could be a rumored report. I don't know if it's entirely true, but I read this that the Packers offered a second round pick for Chase Claypool, and the Steelers took the Bears for the simple fact that they believed the second round pick would be lower for the Bears. Imagine if you're Chase Claypool and you have the chance to probably catch passes from one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, and then you get Justin Fields. And I'm not trying to knock Justin Fields because John, you're right. He has played a whole lot better of late, but you said it's a win-win-win situation. I think it would have been more of a win-win for uh, Chase Claypool if he went to Green Bay, because he would have instantly been, I mean, debate me if I'm wrong, probably the best wide receiver on the Packers.
In terms of maximizing that payday that he's up for in a year and a half.
That's true, but he would have instantly been a big target getter in the Green Bay offense if he was there. But for the Bears, at least, yeah, I think it's an awesome move, and I think it makes things a lot better because N'Keal Harry is not Chase Claypool. Chase Claypool is leaps and bounds better than N'Keal Harry, and I do think if the Chicago Bears continue to roll the way that they have, and while yes, they lost last week, but if they continue to improve that the way they have been, I see this as a win-win for Justin Fields, really. This is a big thing for him. And he should be happy that his organization went and got him another receiver.
And look, fellas, we were all very critical of the Bears coming to this season.
They've proved us all wrong.
So we owe them an apology. Not because they're blowing our socks off, okay? They have won a handful of games that were very easy to win. The Bears are building well around Justin Fields. They hire an offensive coordinator in Luke Getsy, who has done a good job maximizing his strengths as a runner of the football. And with Darnell Mooney, a guy that has been expected to take the load as number one, now he has one of the most dynamic receivers on the other side of the football. But the issue with Chase has always been inconsistency. May give up on his routes. He's, in my opinion, become a very good teammate. He's very likable. He's up-tempo. He's upbeat. I like him a lot. It's just a matter of consistency with him. He often falls a lot on his routes, has way too high of a center of gravity. And while he's got some nice hands, it's much like Deontay Johnson, where they catch the ridiculous ball and they have a good catch radius, but the easy one, the one where it's a one-on-one against a 5'9" LaMarcus Joyner, and they can't hold on to it. I'm just like, dude, this is what you're paid to do. This isn't the job description. And I think for Chase Claypool, he's going to get paid in Chicago because they have over $100 million. At the end of the day, though, the Bears do need to go out and get a number one receiver in the draft because I do not think Chase Claypool is that. But can he be a damn good number two? Maybe a speedier Mike Williams? I think so. And to get that for a second-round pick, given what the wide receiver market is, I thought the Bears had a home run with that deal, so long as they can do a good job incorporating him. And for Pittsburgh, you had to do this.
Are you going to miss him?
No, not at all.
No.
I remember that game against the Vikings started celebrating while the clock was running after getting a first down conversion. And while they didn't directly lose us the game, from that point on, I was completely done on Chase Claypool. When you do that and you basically put an Instagram caption over maximizing your team's chance to win, I say to hell with that. You're not a Pittsburgh Steeler. I like him. He's a good kid, but I feel Chase Claypool is a selfish player in some aspects like that, where doesn't have that dog mentality. Moving on, he actually did say it's back to business in Chicago, and no, I'm gonna snap, whatever that means on Twitter. Don't expect him to snap. The next move was the Miami Dolphins, a team that feels like they're literally one move away from winning a Super Bowl this year. And a lot of Miami Dolphin fans believe heavily in this offense. But defensively this year, it hasn't been as good as you would hope. And so they made a move, and a very surprising one. I don't think any of us expected this to happen. The day before, I was singing the Broncos' praises, saying they can make the playoffs if everything went well. But no, they were shopping around Bradley Chubb. And what happens? Chubb, who has had a very good season after getting 0 sacks last year, gets moved to Miami for a first-round draft pick from the San Francisco 49ers. If you guys want to talk about the trade that allowed the Dolphins to get that first-round pick, which they've then parlayed into 3 different stars, you can. For the Miami Dolphins, Jay Ray, does this make them let's say how it is, does this push them into the top weight of the NFL with the Eagles, with the Eagles, with the Bills, and with the Chiefs?
Have you guys ever heard the Miami Dolphins fight song? You never heard it? When me and my cousins used to play Madden, I used to pick the Dolphins, and I used to troll them and sing this song. And this song really resembles what I think the Dolphins can do. It's like We're in the air, we're on the ground, we're always in control. And when you say Miami, you're talking Super Bowl. That trade right there just put them in the top two, top three AFC teams. Easily. Easily. The way Tua played last week, he's healthy. Their two best receivers are both in the top 5 in receiving yards. They are going absolutely crazy. This is exactly what you want to see from your team. An aggressive GM going out there and making a move that he thinks is going to get them to a Super Bowl. And I got to say, I don't think Miami is that much worse than Kansas City and Buffalo. They're right there. They're not walking in there going to get blown out. I think they're going to compete. I think they're scarier than people think. Do not sleep on the Miami Dolphins going into the playoffs. Do not. This trade puts them there.
I mean, it's not really saying much to say they're a top 3 team with. I'm hearing
better
a
than
lot.
Cincinnati?
I'm hearing a lot
Yes.
this season about bad football. Tom Brady said it in a press conference. Rob Ninkovich, I've heard him on his show talk about how it's just been really bad football. And that kind of goes to my point that I was just about to make. It's just, saying they're a top 3 team, sure, but they really shouldn't be if we look at the land of the AFC and what it was supposed to be and what the NFC was supposed to be like. So yeah, they can be, sure, but it's not that highly impressive to me, just with the fact of how bad a lot of good teams are playing this season, and kind of rolling from last season too. There was a lot of bad football too. So yeah, it's a good move, but again, I've heard a lot of Denver Broncos fans talk about how this guy was on his way to being labeled a bust because he wasn't producing to the level that everybody thought he was going to produce. Now he's having a good season this year so far. He's on pace, possibly have one of his best seasons yet. We'll see how he plays in the Miami Dolphins system. They got a lot of talent on that defense too. So we'll see where this goes. We will see.
BCAP, you want to know why so many Bronco fans are kind of just worried about him? Coming off a torn ACL last year, only played in 7 games, and he struggled. It wasn't himself. But as you always say, it takes a full year for a guy to jump back to that level. And so far this year, 5.5 sacks. Hasn't been the most consistent pass rusher week to week, but he is one of the best players at his position. And for this Dolphins defense to invest, getting Jalen Phillips in the first round of the draft, you of course signed Melvin Ingram this last offseason, and now Bradley Chubb, with Javon Holland developing in the secondary. You got Roquan Davis at D-tackle, and Xavier Howard, who's kind of had an up-and-down year, had a phenomenal showing against my Steelers, of course, because why wouldn't he? This Dolphins defense is becoming one of, on paper, the best in the league. Now it's a matter of them clicking at the right time. But for Miami, let's be honest, this move does not push them into that camp of Kansas City and Buffalo. And the reason why is, if the Dolphins this year don't make it to the AFC Championship game, there is one very obvious reason why. And it's going to be the offense. If Tua, let's say, is banged up, if he's playing in the rain, if he's underperforming, not making the necessary throws, he's had a very good season, but it's a matter of him showing he can do it at the highest levels. That is so concerning. Not concerning, but a little bit, we're not certain up until this point. But I do want to highlight one quick thing. The Dolphins traded the 3rd overall pick in the 2021 NFL drafts to the San Francisco 49ers. And the Niners took that on Trey Lance. 19 months later, the Dolphins have Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, and Bradley Chubb from that one single move. That right there is what I call a power play.
That's what I'm telling you. And I don't understand one thing from the both of you guys. How you can't visualize them in that upper echelon. I mean, Brandon said, yeah, I guess you could see them, but it's not saying much because of the landscape of the rest of the AFC. But I mean, look at their roster compared to all the teams that we expected to be at the top. It's right there with them, if not better. And who's Buffalo's one loss this season?
Miami escaped them.
But Miami won. That's what matters. It's about winning plays, and they just made enough winning plays. While you're right, Buffalo should have probably won that game. When you make bad decisions, that's what happens. You lose games, and the opposing team needs to seize the opportunity. That's exactly what Miami did back then. I believe it was week 2, week 3.
Are they winning this division?
Miami?
Yeah.
No, they're not.
Okay. Are the Chiefs going to win the AFC West?
Yes.
Is Baltimore going to win the AFC North?
Okay, yes.
All right. Do you believe Tua Tagovailoa can go into any of those territories, because they will be home games for those teams in the blistering cold in January,
I don't.
and perform at a high level?
No.
He's never done it. That and you're going off of pure belief and not off of factual stuff.
This is exactly what it is. It's me going off of belief from what I've seen from this Miami team.
I'm asking you to take elements into consideration, which we've never seen Tua perform. And we know, and vice versa could be said about cold weather teams going to hot weather stadiums. It affects you differently. So again, it's going to be tough for them in late December, January, for them to perform in Buffalo, in Kansas City, Baltimore.
No, you're right. I'm not saying, listen, they got their work cut out for them. When they get to the playoffs, they do. But with the talent that they have on the outside, they can keep up with just about anybody.
They can. If Tua stays healthy, the Dolphins can, in my eyes, beat Kansas City. But it's also going to take those receivers going turbo and something happening to those teams. Maybe the Chiefs secondary isn't right. Patrick Mahomes has a crucial turnover. And just like we saw last year, this Dolphins team can overcome a juggernaut and beat them, stunning them on the road. I think it's possible, but the Dolphins need a lot of things to go their way. That's why I'm not putting my money on them. One last thing before we go to a 2-minute drill, where we basically rapid fire give off our teams and our game picks of the week and pick them. Bradley Chubb got a 5-year extension this morning. A lot of money for a guy coming off of an injury, but still having a very good season, worth over $110 million. He's going to be in Miami for the long haul. I think for the Dolphins, you got to put your money where your mouth is. For them, they're investing into a younger core players long term, and it's going to open up this championship window past these couple of years.
Chris Greer making a run for executive of the year.
We have to see how they do in the playoffs, kid. They get knocked down in the first round, Justin. Does Chris Greer deserve the executive of the year?
Ask me that again in a couple weeks.
Okay, start off crazy. We got 2 minutes. I want you guys to rattle off your picks of the week. Philadelphia at Houston tonight, Thursday, 8:15.
Philadelphia. Yeah, by Philadelphia to the moon.
Better hope Dan Pierce doesn't go turbo. The Chargers are going to Atlanta. I've called Atlanta the Jekyll and Hyde team in the NFL at 1 o'clock Sunday.
Chargers have to win. I'm taking the Chargers.
I'm taking the Dirty Birds.
The Chargers, just because they have to win doesn't mean they will. I will still take them because I have blind trust in Justin Herbert to beat a much inferior quarterback in Marcus Mariota. Next game of the week, Miami going to Chicago. They are 5-point favorites at 1 o'clock.
Miami.
Do you really think I'm taking anybody else but Miami after all the stuff I just said?
The Bears have 3 wins.
Taking Miami.
The Panthers are going to Cincinnati, where they're 7-point underdogs. Bengals 4-4, coming off of a rough loss last week on Fox.
I didn't hear your pick for the Miami-Chicago game. Did you pick the Bears?
I'm taking the Dolphins, but I do want to acknowledge the Bears with 3 wins.
Okay. So for Cincinnati, Carolina, I think I'm going to roll with Cincinnati. They'll get hot this week after getting blanked. Well, they didn't get blanked, but I mean smacked by the Cleveland Browns.
Sure.
Cincinnati.
The Packers are going to Detroit, where they're only 3.5-point favorites because of the way they started the season. The Packers are a 3-5 football team, and if they lose this game, their season is over. I have the Lions winning.
Green Bay.
I'm taking Detroit. Every time I've been betting on the Packers in my FanDuel stuff, they've been screwing me over. I'm going against them.
Brian Gutekunst may be the worst executive in football, and I don't say that lightly when you take Quay Walker and a 24-year-old defensive tackle who's not played for them this year over wide receivers that could have helped you, but that's besides the point. The Colts are going to New England where they're 5.5-point underdogs.
New England.
Taking the Pats. I think, yeah. They're messing with a rookie, not a rookie quarterback, but Sam Ellinger making the second career start. Am I right? So,
Yep.
This is a big opportunity for Belichick to feast.
Buffalo at New York, they are only 11.5-point favorites. Buffalo.
Buffalo by 1 billion.
The Vikings are going to Washington, and they're 3.5-point favorites at 1 o'clock.
Washington.
Taking Washington? Any reason why?
The Heineke.
Minnesota's got to lose some games this season, right? It's in Washington. Heineke, I like him.
I think Minnesota wins. Kirk goes home. Nice little homecoming for him.
The Raiders are only 2-5, going to Jacksonville, where the Jags are also 2-6. Vegas is 1.5-point favorites. Give me Vegas.
Vegas.
I'm done with the Raiders.
I'm done too.
with them.
No, I take it back. I'm taking the Jags. I'm taking it back.
I'm done with them.
Hell no. Next game, Seattle going to Arizona. The Seahawks are 5-3 and still 2-point underdogs. 4 o'clock.
Arizona.
Let's give some respect to Seattle. Geno Smith, I believe, just won NFC Offensive Player of the Month. I'm going to go with Seattle.
Don't sleep on Kenneth Walker. K9 is the apparent nickname nowadays we're throwing around. The Rams are going to Tampa Bay where they're 3.5 underdogs. Give me the Rams, man.
Tampa Bay.
I'm going to have to take the Rams here. Cooper Kupp is questionable, but expected to play if I'm not mistaken.
He has to play.
Yeah, as long as he's on the field, I'm going with the Rams.
The Titans are going to Kansas City where they're 12.5-point underdogs. At 5-2, I think that's kind of crazy.
Kansas City.
Is it crazy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like the Chiefs do a good job at stopping Derrick Henry, at least from the playoff game that I remember. I'm going to go with KC.
That right there is my bet of the week. The Titans are going to keep that game lower scoring, and I think Derrick Henry is going to have another big-time day. And, man, people got to stop sleeping on Mike Vrabel's Titans because they always overachieve. Last game, Monday night, Ravens at Saints. 8:15. Mark Andrews has been dealing with shoulder and knee injuries. I don't think he plays because they had their bye week after, but he could. Give me the Ravens, though, still. I think they can win this one.
Baltimore.
Yeah, I'm rolling with Lamar in Baltimore. Big trade, they'll start rolling.
Better hope. Thank you so much for watching and staying at the very end of episode number 45. This was John with BCAP and J Ray. And as always,
stay classy.